Hello gaming buddies, let's talk about weather. This RPG topic came to mind since Finland has been experiencing a lot of heavy rain recently, even some flooding in certain parts of the country. But it made me think about the way that I've used weather in my games and the way certain game masters that I've played under have really not used it at all, or at least if they describe it, it's sort of only in passing, it doesn't really matter. Um, but using and describing the weather in your games can affect the flavor of a scene greatly and, of course, create a certain mood. We all know about the dark and stormy night, but there are other ways. Even an especially beautiful and sunny day can create a very memorable start to a campaign. You know, if you use weather to emphasize certain scenes and the way the plot turns, and it can have much more effect in the game than just simple combat modifiers. Uh, and more than just go over what has already been stated in, for example, the Pathfinder core rulebook, um, I'll talk about how to use weather as a sort of storytelling tool, uh, not just a hazard, just a simple hazard. There's more to it than that. But first, to start on how to do it. Now, I'm mostly talking in fantasy terms here, but there are plenty of ways that weather can be used in science fiction or modern games as well, of course. But these are the overall aspects that you can use in any sort of genre. First, describe not just how it looks, but instead engage all the senses. Just don't overdo it. You don't have to make a lengthy description every time the weather changes, but in those important scenes you can pick certain uh, senses to create the mood you want. So, of course, the smell of rain, everyone knows that, it's very powerful. Also can smell electricity in the air ahead of a thunderstorm, and also how it feels. You know, rain can be quite cold, for example, uh, and you go running in the snow at winter, and you will feel the cold on your face. Uh, there's, of course, sound, like hail pounding on the roof of the cottage, uh, and there's even taste. I mean, rainwater can be bitter, for example, um, and this can even affect the sixth sense, the mental state, where you you start to not even like sense danger, but you might get that inkling of, oh, the weather is about to shift. Um, and of course, on a rainy day, certain people get more contemplative and creative and so on. Uh, Other people are feel refreshed when they go out in the morning into a bright winter's morning. I know I enjoy that immensely, but you know, it can affect the mood of not just the scene or the story, but the character. And you should also think of how the world itself reacts to the weather. I'm talking about NPCs, animals, all sorts of monsters. I mean, that part is often forgotten, but yeah, that troll might have snuck under the bridge just to keep himself dry. Don't know, might be. Uh, and of course, there are the communities like little farming villages and so on, and they are affected by big shifts in the climate immensely. And the list goes on, of course. There's all other aspects of the world that you have to, or don't have to, but probably should consider if the player characters come across them. Now, the weather should fit the climate that the adventures are taking place in, so that if there is a big change, either for supernatural reasons or just random chance, then it will have a bigger impact. It will seem out of place or out of character for that season. Um, and you can have all sorts of random variations, that is. But they should overall suit the season. So that if you have that big supernatural event, for example, then it really stands out. I would actually advise you to create or think ahead the course of the weather for uh, the upcoming year, for example, so that it can be somewhat foretold, um, so that characters who are capable of reading weather uh, are actually feel like they are valuable allies, and they will be if you make weather an important part of your story. Uh, doesn't have to be the key to everything, of course not, but it can have great effects that I will go into just a bit. And actually, if you are willing to do a little extra work and you have the ability, you might try playing ambient nature sounds in the background of your gaming session. I've used this a couple of times in one of my groups where we have speakers handy and I can just hook them into my laptop and play off of either the internet or my playlist. Mix my normal ambient music soundtrack with the nature soundtrack, or just use one or the other. Uh, I use those nature sounds very sparingly though. Like this just past Sunday when we had our Pathfinder Shackles game, there was a fight during a big storm at sea, and there I had the combat music going on and the sound of a ship at sea and a storm going on, so that they mixed together. And I thought it fit pretty well. I had to fiddle a bit with the volume controls, but yeah, uh, might want to consider that. It's not a must-have, of course, and it does mean that you have to prepare for that as well. You can't be fiddling with the controls and looking for sites when you're at the gaming table. You have to do that work beforehand. But going on to the effects. Now, I'm not gonna talk about what uh, ranged attack modifiers you get when there's a windstorm or whatever. No, that's the mechanical and somewhat boring part. I think. Yeah, it's. I mean, it is important and it can come into play, but it's not the main thing that I use weather for. Uh, let's go over some examples of what would be like the normal effects of weather. Let's start with unusually hot seasons, warm seasons. Uh, First off, they make certain labor and wearing heavy armor more difficult to handle. Uh, there can be sunburns, which are, if you've ever had them, they are painful. Uh, and of course, animals, you really have to look after them. Certain species of animal can easily die if they are exposed to too much sun. And both animals and people, even monsters, this should be might be even a plot hook. They need more drinking water than usual. So it could be that those goblins are raiding the town not for treasure or wanting to kill anyone, they just want the water. Uh, on the flip side, cold seasons, yeah, this is pretty interesting because first off, people wear more clothing, so they are more difficult to identify on sight. So you really have to get up close to get a good look at their face. Of course, travel is slower, and it's tougher to camp outside and make camp. And of course, you will need firewood, and you can't just, well, you can chop any old frozen wood out there, but yeah, best to carry your own. And of course, with cold weather, folks get sick in winter time, and many in certain rural communities, especially, children and old people might die, and this can be a cause of great suspense, or you know, because there's only so much that the adventurers can do to protect the old and the young from the weather, the climate itself. Um, then there's of course rain, like I mentioned. Now, a constant downpour like we had here in my native country, it means that campsite spots, at least the good ones, are a bit limited, because if you want to make a fire and keep it going through the night, yeah, you can't just camp in any old place. You need some cover. And of course, travel might be slower, might also be faster, depending on how you go, but travel by river is dangerous, since the flow of the water is much faster and driftwood can break a vessel, even a big one. I mean, you have the torrent of water breaks free some big 30-foot piece of lumber upstream, and it crashes into your ship. Even if it's a big ship, it can actually be lethal. Um, yeah, and there are of course possibility of flash floods that can block off certain routes. You can't travel from this city to that city anymore because there's a flood zone in between. Uh, they can even A flood can overwhelm a village and create dangerous mudslides. Uh, of course, there are also, with rain comes lightning sometimes, and lightning storms may cause fires both in settlements and in forests. And even a hailstorm can kill people or cattle. So you need to take cover, seek good hard shelter. If you're in a tent, that's not gonna do much for you. Uh, And again, on the flip side, with rain, there's also drought. Something that is very, very difficult to counter. Uh, it means that the price of water, the value of water goes way up. You might not even be able to buy any if you're a passing traveler, unless someone takes pity on you, and yeah, it can be really, really difficult. And of course, it means that crops might fail, so there are starving people, food has to be rationed. Both of these things create great unrest and can cause, in bigger cities, riots, and in smaller communities, just where people start stealing from one another. And yeah, it can turn very ugly, where neighbor turns against neighbor. And of course, animals may have to be slaughtered. I mean, they like keeping a horse, for example, is during a drought. Keeping a horse is an extravagance. You know, they need a lot of water to survive. So even that noble lord might have to swallow his pride and take his stallion to the axe. And yeah, moving on from drought, then we have a slightly different form of weather with fog. Uh, it's eerie, but so are other conditions of low visibility, like whiteout conditions, where either sand or snow is blowing around so much that you can't really see. Of course, fog is very common in horror settings to create that suspense, but I actually used a snowstorm to great effect with this, where there was in one adventure talk of an abominable snowman up in the mountains, and the guys had to travel through there. So off they went, and sure enough, they hear some howling every now and then, but they don't really pay any mind because they don't believe that they're being followed. The ranger doesn't see any unusual tracks. So, but then the snowstorm hits, and here comes the Yeti, who can actually, while it doesn't see in the through the snowstorm, it does have a sort of echolocation with its howling. So it has basically a blind sense, like a bat. Yeah, this one Yeti, even it was a pretty low-level monster for that party, but it could create great a great scene, a very surprisingly tough fight. You know, in Pathfinder with when you can't see, uh, and there was no good way to get around that. It's not enough to have dark vision. If there's a snowstorm, well, there's snow in your eyes, and yeah, it was really great. Uh, and of course, not just using a monster in a storm, but the most common threat of that is that people can lose sense of direction and get lost. Even that uh, druid or ranger who is used to walking in the in nature and knows their way and so on, but if they can't navigate by sight, then even they can become lost. Of course, uh, there are also storms at sea or seashores that can cause great havoc. Um, I mean, I've used storms a couple of times in my Shackles campaign. Yeah, they really do change the battlefield quite a bit. Where where their actions are a bit more limited. Spellcasting is difficult when the boat is rocking up and down, and of course with my magical fumble rules there's an additional element of danger there. So yeah, but there are also, aside from all of these, a whole list of supernatural or rare or just plain bizarre uh, events that can be really cool. They should be used pretty sparingly for creating big changes in the either in the story or in a certain area that you want to affect. Because if they happen all the time, if they become sort of routine, well, where your players go, oh, this again, or well, what now? Um, it can be a bit too much. But with these sorts of events, you should think first, okay, what is causing it and why? Is there a wizard behind it with some sort of agenda? Uh, Maybe not. Some strange things happen just by pure chance. Um, and those can, of course, create all sorts of rumors and so on, even though the party that is being charged with all these uh, accusations or, that's being hounded might not even have done anything. But yeah, he's just that weird guy that lives in that tower outside the town, so he must be the culprit for this hailstorm or whatever. But yeah, some ideas I have here. Of course, a more a less supernatural one and more a normal event, but still pretty rare, would be a meteor shower. Uh, or even here, a passing comet that has some sort of effect to the climate. Of course, there could be firestorms that crop up, uh, not just like a forest fire, but actual fire raining from the sky for whatever reason. And this could be in all sorts of different shapes. It might be actually that there are some sorts of pieces of something falling out of the sky, and it's not a meteor. It's not a pieces of a comet. It's, hang on, doesn't this look kind of like a castle door made of metal? Yeah, weird. Uh, of course, there could also be something far more benign, but just as supernatural. Bizarre clouds. Clouds of weird color or shape, or clouds that move against the wind. Um, I mean, in one of my games, I had actually one of the clerics saw a sign from their god in the clouds, and yeah, and that had a story effect attached to it, so it wasn't just like a funny little throwaway thing. Uh, some natural but very rare events are tsunamis, and we all know how devastating those can be. I mean, those can wipe out entire coastal areas, which can have a huge impact on a nation's well-being. Sometimes even entire towns are just gone. You can scrape those away from the map. There's nothing there now, just a bunch of ruins. And speaking of impact, there's of course the good old meteor impact. One gigantic rock in particular that strikes down in certain area, and there's a crater, and uh, actually the crater itself might be surrounded by strange weather all throughout the year. There's also the area is always unusually hot, so even during the coldest winters there is no snow or ice within that crater. So it's like this hotspot for where some animals might even take refuge that might normally travel south for the winter. And some other supernatural things. How about a mist that steals people's memories? I've used that one. It's because it was yet again one of those things that could not be solved just by attacking it. There was nothing to attack. It was a mist, and people started losing, bits and pieces here and there, and finally their own names and occupations, and it was very interesting adventure. Possibility: a blood red haze colors the moon and signals the rise of the undead. Yet another one I used. This is very iconic, of course, but hey, it works. And it might even be that there is a blood red moon, but it passes, and there's no great visible change in anything. People are just very nervous, but actually, did something happen? Was it just something so minor that people haven't noticed yet? Possibility, again, harsh rain of silvery water, enhancing the magical powers of all mortals under it. Yeah, those clerics and wizards suddenly find that they are truly invigorated by this rain, and as it passes, uh, their powers start to come down to their normal level. But yeah, there could be a span of even a week there that everyone who can use magic feels a certain boost to their ability. And this can have all sorts of effects, of course. Young wizards might feel a bit uppity all of a sudden and challenge their masters or whatever. And there could be all sorts of upheavals in the clergy, or, for example, maybe the weather is tied to a person. So the cursed traveler, known only as Thunderfoot, arrives to the player's town in secret, but of course the thunderstorm follows him and it doesn't go away, and this starts causing great distress, and there is talk of this traveler and what are they going to do with him. It is said that the one who kills the Thunderfoot takes on the curse of the Thunderfoot. Hmm. Uh, anyway, just some ideas on how to use weather in your games, and if you have any sorts of examples or ideas from your own games, please share them either in comments below or a video response. I would really appreciate it. But that's it for me, uh, for now at least, and I'm going to go outside. It's not raining for once, so good time to hit the town. Anyway, have a very nice sunny day wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Bye.